Hello, Hero Collectors here. How's it going, everybody? Hope y'all are doing fantastic. I know I am, and today I'm going to be reviewing these two Transformers figures. One's Age of the Primes with Vortex, who is a deluxe figure, and the other is the Studio Series 86 Mixmaster. These are both combiner figures, Vortex being the first to go to Bruticus, and then Mixmaster being the last figure I needed to combine to make Devastator. So we're going to be doing both these figures together in a review. And without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, getting a closer look here, we have Mixmaster, who is sporting a pretty simple color scheme of some gunmetal gray, blue, black, and just a hint of red. Of course, he's got the Decepticon logo right there. Coming down to the legs, you can see a little hollow, but that's how the engineering for most of the arm attachment figures have been for this style of combiner, as he will be put onto a frame when we get the Bruticus overall build. You can see the feet make up the cockpit of the helicopter. You can see the blades plug in here at the back. You can remove them. They just plug in with the standard 5mm port. So if you want to use those as a weapon, I know I did in a couple photos, you absolutely can. Yeah, coming up to the head. My paint apps are a little iffy. I've got some extra silver and at the eyes, and then the silver at the mouth plate just doesn't quite match, so it's a little off. Maybe I had a QC issue that they tried to fix, but it is what it is. You can see where all the little connection points will be for when he does combine. And then coming to one of the parts of the figure I don't care for is how the tail attaches to the arm, or the tail of the helicopter attaches to the arm. So you can just kind of plug it in there, use it as part of the design or something. Maybe you can use it as shields or whatnot. But I just find it kind of in the way and a little frustrating. So you can, I'm having trouble right there. The way it's actually put onto the figure, you can remove it and just put it back on whenever you like. So that's what I did for several photos, but for the sake of the video, I figured I'd leave them on. But yeah, in terms of just kind of going over the figure, that's about all I've got really to add. It's definitely in the style of the other aerial bots that are deluxe scale, similar size, similar design, engineering, whatnot, but he does turn into a helicopter and the others don't. Now, getting into the accessories, he does come with 3 guns. So you have 2, actually let me set him down, that are mirrored of each other. They do have pegs on the opposite sides, but they are basically the same design, just like that. I like to plug these onto the back of the wrist, so he's just got some wrist-mounted blasters. And then he does have one that is a bit more. It's got a scope, 2 pegs on either side, and yeah, it's just the only one of the 2, or of the 3 that we have. So I'll show these when we get into the alt mode, but let's go over the articulation in this mode. So he can look up ever so slightly, down a little bit, of course turn side to side, and he does get a little bit of pivot here and there. The arms can rotate full 360, you just kind of have to watch the blades. He's got a bicep swivel, well, and they can go up this high. Yeah, bicep swivel, and you got to watch this tank here. I believe that's a gas tank to the helicopter mode. But yeah, watch that. Elbows go in 90 degrees, no wrist rotation, and then yeah, these can shift up and down however you like for the figure. He's got a waist swivel that he actually does detach from here, and this is where he separates when in the combined mode. Hips can go out perfect splits. He can kick forward, can kick back quite a bit, and he does have a thigh cut, single jointed knee that gets exactly 90, and then he got some ankle pivot, and his feet can go back a little bit, and then his toes can articulate, but just down, not up, so you can't really utilize that when posing. So there's all the articulation. Now let me put him into his alt mode. Alright, and here he is in his helicopter mold, which is a pretty clean, for the most part, alternate mode. I would say the only non-clean part is the head back here, but even then it has the landing gear, so you can make the excuse of that. And I suppose this little gap here, but even then, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. That wasn't staying in place. But yeah, he's got the rotors up here. They spin pretty nicely. You just kind of have to watch because they do move independently of each other. So just make sure that those are lined up. And then he's got the back rotor right here. And yeah, nice windscreen. I really don't have much really to say overall. I think it's pretty clean alternate mode and is pretty easy to transform into. Like, there's not really a whole lot of complications. The only thing is just make sure that the arms are rotated the right way when putting the tail up into this mode. But like I mentioned before, I wanted to show you how all the guns plug in. So this one just kind of plugs in over here. Use the tab on the side. And you got the one that plugs in over here. And then you can take the one that's on his own and just plug it into one of the sides here. And boom, he is now kitted out to blow away some Autobots, I suppose. So yeah, looking pretty sick. So that's about all I have to say in the overview. So let's go into my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on Vortex are not like super convoluted or anything. I think the biggest fault of this figure is the extra kibble on the back of the arms, but the fact that that can be removed doesn't really make it a big deal to me, and ultimately this guy is going to be displayed on a Bruticus, so in the long run, it's not a huge complaint, but in terms of just posing him on his own, that was probably the biggest detractor of this figure. Compared to all the aerial bots, I think he is the best of the 5. Deluxe ones, I mean. I'm not including Silverbolt in that. So I think the engineering, the articulation, all that comes together for a better figure overall than even the aerial bots had done. I know there's some things on this figure that other people might not like, with how gappy the inside of the calves are and just a few other things here and there. But ultimately, to me, they don't bother me that much. I think the figure is pretty fun overall, despite those issues. And those things don't affect me nearly as much as some other people. So just kind of keep that in mind. I think there's plenty of accessories. He comes with, 3 individual guns, ones that I haven't seen before. So it's pretty nice loadout. And the fact that you can even equip the rotors to his forearms if you want, or the big blades as a weapon, so that's pretty fun. In terms of fun factor, yeah, I would say he has the fun factor, especially since I removed the arm kibble. I was able to do some pretty fun things with the figure. And for a final rating, I want to give him an 8 out of 10, especially since this is probably my favorite of the Combaticons. Sorry, I forgot their name for a second. I don't know them super well, but in terms of the overall design and the vehicle, I think Vortex is my favorite of the 5. Yeah, there's 5. Oh, there is Brawl, but I think Brawl is just a close second. I like Vortex the most. Alright, moving on to Mixmaster, the last of the Constructicons that I have needed for the collection. And if you've seen my reviews on the previous Constructicons, I will say it's going to be a common theme with this guy. A lot of my same complaints are present here on this figure, but overall he looks pretty solid. You can see the head sculpt there. You kind of have to work in underneath this little piece up here to really get in there. And I do wish, because I've seen some iterations where these 2 little points here actually stick out more and can be used as blasters or something. I don't know. Certain artwork showed it as that. I would have liked maybe an attachment to just kind of put over that, and you can have extra blasters and maybe some blast effects. I don't know. Just a thought. You can see his big concrete mixer in the back there. Arms, very obviously part of the set of wheels, and they just line up like that. The hands here. Coming into the torso, this part of transformation, this actually does unhinge, and there's lots of detail in there. So you can see all that. Decepticon logo. Come down here to the feet, very obviously the front of the vehicle mode. Come down here. Yeah, lots of random bits of detail all over, but still very much purple and green like all the others. In terms of accessories, he only comes with the one gun here, and it's unique to him. No other Constructicons have it, so that works pretty well. Well, let's go over the articulation. So his head, you can get it to tilt side to side. You can look down, up a little bit, and of course, turn in there. Ugh, it's really hard to get in there. And then the shoulders, you kind of have to work with the figure to really get them to work, but you can go up that high if you utilize that extra hinge and not get it stuck. Can do a full 360 there. He's got a bicep swivel right there. Single jointed elbow, can only get 90 degrees, no wrist rotation once again. There is no waist swivel, but because of the combined mode, you can actually get a side crunch, which is essentially the ankle pivot in the combined mode. So, I mean, I utilize that for one picture, and you'll see here in a few, but legs can go out that far. Can't kick forward, can't kick back. It's got a thigh cut there. Single jointed knee goes exactly to 90, and the feet can go do the pivot, and there's no back and forth. You can extend the extra bit of the toe if you want to in this mode, but there's no real need to, and it actually offsets the foot from the rest of the ankle. So yeah, limited articulation in some areas, but let's move on to the alt mode. All right, and here he is in his cement truck mode, looking very solid and feeling very solid. This doesn't want to kind of fall apart or anything. You know, it's a very solid truck. Looking pretty good. I had transformed the spout out of the actual mixer there, so now that's proper working order. Got all 6 of the wheels. You can see underneath, the only real visible parts are the Decepticon logo and the hands. Of course, everything else just kind of compacts together. Looking pretty sick. If you want to, you can bring the gun in and plug it right here on top, so he can blast as he mixes. So yeah, that is a nice little feature. But yeah, that's about it in terms of an overview of Mixmaster. So what are my final thoughts? So my final thoughts on Mixmaster are basically the same thoughts that I've had for most of the Constructicons. It's a decent figure, but just with some limitations that I felt like they could have worked around if they really wanted to. The no wrist articulation, some of the wonky bits at the shoulders, more ankle articulation or foot articulation would have been nice. Otherwise, it's a decent figure. In fact, it's probably one of my more favorite figures of the 6. I think I'm going to end up doing a ranking when I actually do the Devastator review, so I'll save that for then. But yeah, again, this whole like mini subline of the 86 stuff for the Constructicons has been not perfect, but still a solid grouping of figures. I can't say that they're, you know, all amazing. I mean, they're all pretty great, but they all have some kind of limitation somewhere. In terms of fun factor, I'm going to give him a no. It was a little difficult, especially, you know, 6 figures in, trying to think of some ideas. And, you know, I don't know a lot of the Constructicons individually, so it was a little hard to find his personality when posing. And then for final rating, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. A decent figure. Of course, in the end goal, we are building Devastator, so he's going to have some limitations because of the combined mode. But I would have liked to have seen a few more things tweaked on this figure to make him just that little bit more better. Alright, and that was my review of these 2 Transformers Combiners figures. We have the Studio Series 86 Mixmaster and the Age of the Primes of Vortex. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Have you gotten these figures? Do you plan to get these figures? Do you plan to build both Devastator and Bruticus? Let me know all these things down there. And while you're down there, make sure you are liking the video. Make sure you are subscribing. And I will talk to you all in another video, another post, another time.